and I wanted to share some other successes we're having in Texas around guided pathways. So you haven't seen this data yet, but what it is a combination of your KPIs that you're doing with your guided pathways work. So these are the measures that are very similar to in Texas, our student success points. And then it also couples that with your scale of adoption assessment. And so what we're finding in the early days, so even as we just are scaling up and beginning to implement our guided pathways work, we're already beginning to see some ticks up in student success. And so I wanted to share those with you and let you know that we are building a dashboard around this data. So at some point, you're going to be able to play with this data for yourself to compare to yourself and your region and other peer institutions. And so here's some successes I could share already. So when we look particularly at the early momentum metrics, so those things that happen earliest in a student's experience with our colleges, we're seeing some increases when we compare pre-guided pathways work in Texas to our Texas Pathways days. And so really this is comparing 2013 to 2016 as one period, the pre-guided pathways era, and then 2017 and 18 as our during guided pathways time. And you can see that on those early momentum metrics, such as do students earn 6 or more credits in their first term? Are they earning 15 credits in their first year or 30 credits in their first year? We're beginning to see some gains across, so this is statewide. So we're talking about 50 community colleges, 750,000 students, all included in this data. And we're seeing some really important increases in these measures. Let me show you some more. So on this next slide, you'll see that more students are also completing their gateway courses. So these are some other early momentum metrics that you'll see, whether students are completing math, reading, or writing in their first year, and then whether they're completing all 3 of those in their first year. And you can see, again, these trends up in every one of these measures. So this is for early momentum in gateway courses to college level courses. One more I want to show you, some success that you all are creating by the changes that you're making in your guided pathways work. And that is that when we look really, we drill down into this one metric, this one of earning 6 or more credits in their first term. And we disaggregate that data. And you know, in your KPIs, we have lots of different interesting disaggregations of all of these KPIs. But when we dig into this one, earning 6 or more credits in their first term, and we disaggregate it by race and ethnicity, you can see that, again, there's this upswing in every single race and ethnicity disaggregation. So this is really important. If you remember in Texas, we've had a long-term commitment to closing the gaps. And we are interested in looking at this disaggregated data to ensure that the kinds of changes that we're making are helping students across the board. And in fact, we want to make greater gains with those students that had been behind. And so I'm not showing you the slide here today, but what we found was that some really interesting successes, that while there were increases across all ethnicities, there was a slightly better increase with Hispanics and African American students. And so we're beginning to close the gaps across those. When we look at full-time and part-time students, both groups made increases, but part-time students made faster gains across these early momentum metrics. And then we also compared Pell students with non-Pell students, and the Pell students are making quicker gains across these early momentum metrics across the board. And so this is a really positive feedback from the beginnings of our hard work of implementing guided pathways, and even doing so during a pandemic. And so I just wanted to say kudos to you and encourage you to keep on this track of changing your institutions to better serve college students, because it's working. So with that, we turn to our workforce conversations. I know that you've enjoyed some other data, the data that workforce data workbook that the Aspen Institute helped us pull together, and had some good data conversations. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Josh Weiner to introduce our first speaker. Josh.
Fantastic. Thank you, Cynthia. And congratulations, everybody. I know that when you see the upticks there, we all have pride in that, but the pride is about the thousands of students' lives who have been improved as a result of that. And we see that in the data that we're looking at nationally. It's why so many Texas colleges are under consideration for the Aspen Prize and finalists for the Aspen Prize. So thank you for your hard work. I'm delighted to introduce our first speaker, Carolyn McMorran. Carolyn works with Joe Batista at Valencia College on their short-term credentials work. And we prepared the workforce playbook by looking at colleges that had achieved strong results both for completion and workforce, and in the case of Valencia, for transfer as well. And what's so notable about the work at Valencia in short-term credentialing is that for years and years, they knew that in Orlando, which has a lot of people in low-wage work, right? A lot of hospitality industry, a lot of folks in construction, in unskilled construction trades, et cetera, that people just weren't coming to campus. And we know that as we do our guided pathways work, there are groups of people who are not coming to campus, who can't be in school for a year or two before they see value in their credentials. And when we visited a couple of years ago and observed the exceptional work moving towards thousands of these short-term industry recognized credentials, we were really impressed by that work. And so Carolyn, who has helped lead that, is an assistant vice president of professional continuing education at Valencia. She spent more than 2 decades in learning and professional development and has worked as a performance consultant to many Orlando-based organizations, so has significant industry background, and really thinking about mapping pathways both to short-term credentials and that lead to good jobs, but also thinking about how people come back and engage in further training has been something that Carolyn's been helping to lead. So with that, I will turn it over to Carolyn and look forward to hearing, learning from her. Thank you.
Well, thank you, first of all, Christy, Cynthia, and Josh, for having me come here today and share this amazing journey that our team's been on for about the last 5 years. We're super excited to share our insights with you. I know Christy's going to be helping me navigate everything today, so if you do have any questions, please put them in the chat. I have some initial information that I want to share with you, and then we'll definitely leave time for questions and answers in case you have any specific questions that you want to engage with. I also asked Christy, she can share my email address, so if there's something else later on that you want to follow up on, I'd be happy to hear from you and help you in any way I can. So I'll get started and share a little bit about, as Josh mentioned, I'm from Valencia College in Orlando, Florida. We serve 2 counties here in Central Florida. We serve Orange and Osceola County, and they're both quite large counties, dedicated predominantly to hospitality and tourism, as you can imagine. And, you know, we'll talk a little bit later about the pandemic and what that's done to Orlando, but you can imagine what we're dealing with at the moment is large layoffs from hospitality organizations. Universal just announced 2 weeks ago that they're laying off 5,400 people. Disney, it just, you know, it's just every single day we're hearing about massive layoffs. So I'm going to share with you kind of the pre-COVID story of AST, of what we call accelerated skills training, but then also tell you how the pandemic is impacting our work and how we really think that our AST programs are positioned well to help a lot of people in our community. So just to share a little bit about the college and our structure, as Josh mentioned, I oversee an area called professional continuing education, and it really consists of 2 buckets of work. The first bucket would be the very traditional continuing education model that you of going out and helping organizations in our community. We still do that work. We still have a lot of organizations that come to us or we go to them and help upskill their current employees and help them get certifications that they need in order to help do their business better. So we do that work. But then about 5 years ago is when we started on this new journey of having I guess a product line, if you will, called Accelerated Skills Training. So that's kind of the story I want to focus on today. And then I'll share a lot of good insights that we've learned along the way. So Christy, if you would go to the next slide, that would be great. So in the beginning, we knew, as Josh mentioned, that there were lots of things going on in Central Florida. First of all, we knew that we had large populations within Orlando that we were not serving. And this could have been anything from, if you think of a continuum, students who potentially dropped out of high school. In Orange County, we were averaging, I think, about 60% of the students who graduated from high school went to college. And that's people that actually graduated. And then in Osceola County, it's much higher. It's like 68%. But then, so there's the kids that graduate, and don't go to college, but then there's the high school dropouts who don't even make it that far. We also knew that people in distressed communities really needed more opportunities. Some of the barriers that they encounter are access through transportation, childcare issues, just even knowing that Valencia would be an option for them. And so we knew that we had to create something that would appeal to all of these different types of students. And what we really wanted to focus on was not only creating an on-ramp or a pathway, however you want to describe it, but also something that was a pathway to a family sustainable wage. And for us, we view that as $15 an hour or higher. As you can imagine, and as Josh said in the introduction, hospitality jobs 5 years ago were probably paying $8.50, $9 an hour. And it is just really hard to make a living in Central Florida with a wage that low. We have one of the worst cities for affordable housing. And so you can imagine there's lots of different factors that play into that. And so our target audience still to this day are the unemployed and the underemployed students who are desiring a new career and want to change their life for the better. And that's who we're targeting with this work. At the same time, I'm sure I don't have to have a whole conversation about the generational turn that's going on in organizations, but at the same genesis of this program, we were having employers start to come to us and say, we cannot find people who can build circuit cards. They just don't exist. We can't find CNC technicians. And we knew that what was happening in these organizations in Central Florida is that people, baby boomers like myself, are starting to retire. They're taking that intellectual capital out the door. And what we also know is that if you look at the demographics, Generation X is much smaller than the baby boomers or the millennial generation coming right behind them. As we talk to millennials and Gen Zs, and this is still true today, in our community, they have very little knowledge of the great careers that exist in manufacturing and construction, even healthcare, education. And so we have to do a lot of sharing with people about what's going on in the Central Florida community. I'm so amazed sometimes when I do presentations for community groups that people have no idea that Lockheed Martin builds missiles here in Central Florida. And so we have to do a really fair amount of educating our community about the different industries that are here. And we also know that the Gen Zs are seeing some of the debt that comes with a college degree and a little concerned about what would be at the end of the cycle for them. And so because of that generational turn that is going on in organizations, that's really impacting the people in our community. And then at the end of the day, I mean, it was like one a week, employers coming to us and saying, we can't find the talent. We are desperate. What can we do? How can we partner? And we really use this as an opportunity to bring all of this together. I sometimes call it the perfect storm when it's not hurricane season. We bring it all together. And these are all the things that were happening at this one point in time 5 years ago and how we came about creating the AST programs. So Christy, if you'll go to the next slide. So our AST programs, or accelerated skills training programs, have 4 things in common. They are fast. You can't call them accelerated unless they're fast. Our shortest program is 4 weeks long, and our longest program is 18 weeks. That's about 5 months if you want to kind of know the time frame there. They are intensive, which means that the students right now go to school from Monday through Thursday, many of them from like 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. We really mirror the workplace. We did that intentionally because we really want to get these students prepared to be successful in the workplace. The other thing that's extremely important is we collaborate, just super collaborate with industry on what's being taught in the classroom. The reason Lockheed Martin has hired 111 of our graduates is because they know exactly what's being taught. And that has been a very big strategy that we've used with a lot of different employers. We get them into the classroom. We want them to see the hands-on experience that the students are gathering. I often tell the story that I met with a CEO of a medical device manufacturing company, and he's like, Carolyn, I'll hire your CNC technicians when they get 2 years experience, or if they have 2 years of experience. I'm like, Richard, they don't exist. And that's the situation we're in Florida, is they would love to have that experience factor along with the knowledge and skills, but those people don't exist in our community. And so how we overcome that part is the intensive hands-on training that happens in our classrooms. And when I say intensive, 80% of what we do is hands-on. So students will learn a couple of nuggets of content, and then they're immediately going to the floor to practice the skill that they're doing. That has proven to be a very effective strategy for us, because if you think about the people that we're trying to attract to these programs, unemployed, underemployed, people who have had some kind of educational trauma, they can't learn in a very traditional way. They have to learn a nugget of content and get out there and practice that skill. And we really believe that this strategy helps our students feel confident and competent. We also know it works. We have multiple students who will go out and apply for a position as an industrial maintenance technician, and they will be asked at that interview to take an assessment. They not only pass the basic assessment, they will pass the senior assessment at the same time. And I really believe the reason that they can do that is because they've had that opportunity to build confidence and competence in the skill in the classroom with the instructor giving them feedback. The other thing that is the fourth thing that's part of every AST program is that we work with employers up front to identify which national credentials matter. What is going to make our students' resumes stand out in a group? And we know that by partnering with these national organizations that have great curriculum, not only does it make your life easier, it makes it really good for the students, and they love earning these industry credentials. Some things I would also tell you, which may be a little bit different, is that all of these accelerated skill training programs live in continuing education. They are not in the credit programs or in the degree programs. They are in continuing education. And there's a reason for that, is we want to keep them very flexible, very nimble. And what I mean by that is not that the degree programs are not flexible and nimble. It's just that we don't have to go to curriculum committee to get things approved. We have launched 3 new programs in the past month. And the ability to do that is provided to us because we are in a continuing education model. Now, we partner very solidly with our degree programs. Many of the programs, our new IT program, we worked with all of the deans and the colleges to get the right fit for the program. We've also worked very hard on articulation. So all of our AS degree programs, our AST programs do articulate to an AS degree. And so if the student does want to continue their education, they have that automatic pathway to get there. Another thing I would tell you about our programs that has been a very great best practice and has really helped us so much is that these are very small cohorts. And the cohort model, I don't have to tell educators how powerful that can be, but it provides such a infrastructure in the class. And so our average class size, I would say, is around 12 to 15 students. We usually don't go any more than 20 because of all the hands-on that's involved. But I wanted you to know that these are very small cohorts, and the cohort model really matters to us. We've seen it correct sometimes class management issues, behavior issues, but the students really bond together during this time. And I think it really helps them to just be more successful. So Christy, if you'll go to the next slide. So how we got started 5 years ago is we got a grant from the Department of Labor. It was affectionately called the TAC grants. I'm sure they were around the country and other people may have gotten TAC grants. We got 2 TAC grants in a 3-year period, and we used that money to actually launch our manufacturing programs. So we started with 4 programs that were based on industry need. Obviously, we have a lot of CNC organizations here in Central Florida, not only Lockheed Martin, but we have a company called Knights Armament, and they build all the machine guns for the US military. So we have a high demand for CNC technicians here in Central Florida. We also started the electronic board assembly program specifically for Lockheed Martin. These students, you'll see one of the students there in the picture, building a circuit card, and it's very intricate work. They actually do it underneath a microscope and also with a magnifying glass, and it also meets the space addendums. So some of the products that our students are actually certified to deliver could actually go and perform in space, which is really exciting because we do have a whole Space Coast division at less than an hour away from Orlando. Our mechatronics program is the industrial maintenance technician program. It's a blend of mechanical, electrical, and PLC systems and inventory control systems. And the people that need these kind of folks right now are distribution, logistics, and supply chain folks to keep the conveyor belt systems going and getting product out to customers. And so that's one of our programs. And then we also put our welding program in advanced manufacturing because many of our manufacturers need welders. So we have a welding 1 and a welding 2 program. And we use this initial grant to get the staffing set up, to buy equipment, to upgrade some facilities. And we were able to launch our manufacturing program in Orlando. So if you'll go to the next slide. The next set of programs, I was at a function one night and with Career Source of Central Florida, which is our local workforce board, and the executive director of the Builders Association in town said, I want you to do exactly what you did for manufacturing for construction. And I cannot tell you how much construction is going on in Central Florida. Actually, $9 billion worth of construction projects. There's not one single road in Central Florida that you can drive on that's not under construction. And I'm not exaggerating. It's just everywhere. Home sales are through the roof right now. We have a $4 billion Virgin train project building a high-speed train from the Orlando airport, and eventually will end up in Miami. There's just all these different projects going on, and the construction needs for skilled talent are just through the roof. I was actually just talking to some builders this morning, and they're like, you've just got to help us find people. So we were able to launch 5 programs in construction, and we've done this over time. We started with a few of these. And what you'll discover on this journey, if this is something that you decide to do, is that as you work with industries, other industries find out. So for example, the apartment maintenance communities came to us and said, hey, we know you do construction. Could you do something specific for us? We are having a really hard time of finding apartment maintenance technicians that can go into people's apartments and repair drywall or an appliance or anything like that. So that's how we start this conversation. And then we work with them to learn about what industry credentials are needed, what skills are needed. And that's how we put these programs together. Probably our most recent one that we've done, in addition to the initial ones that we started, was the electrical power lineman. So here in Central Florida with hurricane season, but also just the population growth that we have, the power linemen are baby boomers, and they're leaving and they don't want to climb power poles anymore. And so we have just finished our 3rd class. It's getting ready to finish up now. And we are able to produce electrical power linemen. Typically, this is an apprenticeship program that the power companies hire people in. What they've been able to do is shave 2 years off the apprenticeship model by hiring our students who already have these industry certifications. And that's just a 15-week program that the students go through. Another thing that we have done, we started this probably about 4 years ago, is we started doing a core construction class inside the Orange County Jail. The jail here is the 17th largest jail in the nation. It has a very short time cycle where people get sentenced, serve time, and get back out. And so we had a great relationship with the chief at the jail. And one day I just asked her, I said, what do you think about doing a construction program inside the jail? And she said, we do culinary, why not? And so it took a year to get all of our stuff approved and get through the cycle. And what they do in the jail is they actually use what's called the inmate welfare fund to actually pay for the training. So if an inmate buys a bag of cookies and they charge $2, it really costs $1. And they use these program funds that they generate from things like that, plus emails and so forth, to actually pay for programming. And it could be anything from GED training, you name it. And we actually have been doing the core construction program inside the Orange County Jail for about 4 years now. We've trained over 350 inmates, and we have cut the recidivism rate of this population by 50%. And that's just amazing. The national average, I believe, is about 64, and ours is 34%. So just not having people go back to that cycle of life is really important and very important work for us. And we're just so grateful to have a great partner like Orange County Jail. We've also recently, they asked us to do a second program because they have two big bay areas that we can use inside the jail. And so we've just started recently a masonry program inside the jail for the inmates there. And that program is working out great. I'll tell you, recruiting's a little bit easier in the jail. We usually get about 200 applications for one program of 20 inmates. And so we work very closely with the jail to qualify the right people for the positions. So if you'll go to the next slide. So right now we have 16 AST programs at Valencia. As I mentioned, we just this, we call a cohort sort of July to December and then January to June. But just in our first cohort this year, we've been able to launch 3 new programs. But this will give you an overview of all the different programs that we have currently at Valencia. We also are in the process of bringing on some additional programs. We are seeing definitely an uptick in solar panel companies and facilities here in Central Florida because of all the distribution, logistics, and supply chain that we have. We have a need for robotics technicians. And we're also working with Lockheed Martin on an optics program to train optics program technicians. We also are working on currently establishing a, it's through MSSC, it's a certified forklift technician, and this is a person that repairs forklifts. And that is of high need right now with all the distribution facilities that we have. The dealers can't keep up with the current needs. And so we have an opportunity to work with them and to do that. But this slide, I just thought would give you an overview. And what's really important maybe to take away from this slide is what you see on here are the 5 major clusters of industry that we have in Central Florida. The one you won't see on here is hospitality, tourism. But right now, just because of COVID, that's not, you know, in high demand. But these industries here were all hiring during the pandemic. We've actually just had 3 classes graduate. We have 3 more this week. I think our placement rate for all 6 of these classes is 100% already. And that's what feels good about this, is that we're able to place people in essential critical industries, which I think is really important. So if you'll go to the next slide. So I want to just share with you all some of the lessons learned, the best practices, the strategies, the tactics that have worked for us. It may not work in every scenario, but I just think these are some things that are really, really important. So one of the first things we had to figure out, because it sounds easy on the surface, of finding people who are unemployed and underemployed, it's probably the most significant challenge that we still have today. You have to realize that the people that we're talking to don't even have Valencia on their radar screen. Early on, I think some of the degree programs thought I was stealing their students, if you will, But I assure you, my students did not even have Valencia on their radar screen. I know that because I remember being in a classroom one day of a construction class, and I had a student come up to me and said, I never thought that I would be on a Valencia campus. It's probably one of the most humbling moments that I've ever had at Valencia in 26 years. You know, thinking that people don't think that they have a right or an opportunity to get an education that can change their lives. So we had to really invest in finding our target audience and making sure that the people that we were getting in the programs actually wanted to go to work, wanted to transition their career, and were going to be able to perform based on whatever barriers they have and be successful. And so what we've done is when we first started, our program teams would do the recruiting and the job placement, and they would run their programs. I think at that point we had a spreadsheet with like 100 names on it, and it was a lot easier to manage when you had just 100 people. But as we grew very quickly, we outgrew a spreadsheet. We went to a database. Now we're in a CRM, a customer relationship management system, which makes our life so much easier. But what we had to do was invest resources in recruiting and job placement. So currently I have 4 recruiters. We've just added a 5th because of a grant program. And these people are phenomenal at what they do, but they are all assigned a different cluster of programs, and they recruit every single student that comes into that program. And you might be saying, well, how do you market and all of that? I'm going to tell you, it is so grassroots. I mean, we do everything from attend food drives. We have breakfasts with pastors of churches. We, you just name it. We go to every community event. We actually have commissioners that will do town halls for us, which is really exciting. We have one tomorrow night, and they are some of our biggest champions. So the techniques that we use to find these people are very grassroots and very, you have to penetrate almost these distressed communities to get the word out, to let people know that everything is going on there. The recruiter, the process that they'll use with the student is once they fill out a 1-page, very simple, free application form, they get connected with the recruiter through the CRM system. The CRM system will send the student some initial information about the program, the career field, the career pathing, all of that type of general information. And once they get to the recruiter will start what we call the vetting process, where they will talk to the student about their past experiences, why this program, what are you looking to gain, just really try to get a feel for where this person is in their life. And also, more importantly, what barriers may exist, like transportation. We have homeless students living in their car. I mean, we have everything, every walk of life. So it's really important that the recruiter invests time in these people to understand what may be getting in the way of their success. We also hired a social media manager, and this is a full-time position, and all this person does is social media for our AST programs. I don't know about you, but initially we had a social media committee and we were trying to post and create content and all of that. We ended up firing ourselves because we're terrible at it. And when you have another job to do, it's so difficult. And so if you're going to do it and do it right and do it well, I would highly recommend investing in a social media manager position. So these are just some of the things that we've learned with the recruiting team. We will tell you that they practice a case management model of touching base with the student all throughout the program. Right before the programs end, the recruiters are teaching resume writing, interview skills. We do everything we can to prep that student for a positive interview with an employer. We also intentionally connect the student with employers. So if Lockheed Martin's coming in, we will present to the class, here's Lockheed, here's what they do, here's a little bit about the job. If you're interested, let us know. And then we will facilitate those students who are interested in that employer connecting with that employer. We want every student to have multiple job offers before graduation. That is the ultimate goal. I will tell you something magically happens after graduation. You've probably experienced it as well, is people go MIA. You cannot find them after graduation. So we try to get ahead of that curve, make sure that students actually are connecting with that employer. And our ultimate ideal is that they have a job at graduation. So some of the barriers that our students face are probably very similar to your barriers. Transportation issues, childcare issues, again, that whole like something happened in their educational pathway and they've got to overcome that. But the biggest thing that we had initially to start with was helping them to find money for tuition. As I mentioned earlier, these programs are all in continuing education, which means that they are not Pell Grant eligible and there's no financial aid. And there were, in the beginning, very few scholarships that would help students. A lot of the federal grants that we get would not pay for tuition. They would only pay for staff and equipment. So over the years, we have worked really hard to build systems in place that provide money, because as you can imagine, if you're targeting unemployed and underemployed people, they don't have the money for the tuition. And so we have worked with our local workforce board. They're one of our best partners. And we are able every year to probably they fund about 40% of our students and some tuition or full tuition, depending on the program. But today we are sitting in a very different spot. I have more money than I can spend at the moment. Our counties are getting CARES Act money. We are actually getting ready to stand up 11 more classes in 2 weeks if we can make this happen. And when Orange County said, what can you do? And do you need facilities? And they're like, we'll give you the convention center, because nobody's at the Orange County Convention Center at the moment. So it's taken a long time to get there, but we've also been very successful because of the work that we do in telling the story. We have gotten private donations. So Lockheed Martin has donated $300,000, and every year they give us $10,000 just for marketing. And they want us to market women and veterans into these positions. So over time, you are able to work on it, but it does take some effort. Most all of our programs are either in the process or already VA approved, which is really a great thing because it helps the veterans in our population. But I just wanted to kind of point that out because that was an initial struggle that we had. So Christy, if you'll go to the next slide. When we talk about access, one of the things that we created with the AST programs is another acronym called CAT, Center for Accelerated Training. These are dedicated facilities where this type of training actually happens. You can imagine these programs are very equipment heavy and centered. For welding, if you have 10 welding booths, that takes up a significant amount of space. And so we have been able to have these centers created either in a standalone environment, or some of them are at an actual Valencia campus. And so the one behind me is actually our downtown center, and it's a little side 4,300 square feet facility that we are leasing as part of a grant that we got. But we also have several centers that are at an actual Valencia campus in Osceola and Point Siena. We have 2 new centers that we are currently working on. One will be on the east side of Orlando, and another one will be kind of in the midpoint of Orlando, which is probably our most distressed community area. And we are currently working on both of those facilities. So Christy, if you'll go to the next slide. And the other thing I wanted to share with you that's also, I think, really important, and probably something you already know as well, is that when I started at the college for years, employers would say, can you just teach them the hard skills, the technical skills? And then they would say, can you teach them the soft skills? And then they would say, can you teach them the life skills? I didn't really know what that meant, but that's things like good nutrition, keeping your life in order, that type of stuff. And now employers just simply say to me, can you make them a good human being? At the end of the day, that's what employers want. They want people who want to come to work, who want to learn, who have a good attitude, who are in it to win it and to be there and to support the business. And so we often joke on our team that we're on a journey to make you a good human being. Three things that we embed in every single AST program that we teach is resume writing, interview skills, and financial literacy. I do not want you going from zero to making $30 an hour and buying a boat. I want you, only if you can afford it. I want you to know what it is that you can and cannot do with this new income that you may have. We really focus on resume writing and interview skills. It amazes me every day that we have to teach people in their 30s how to write a resume, but people don't have these tools in their tool bucket. And so when they do need to change careers or do something different, I want them to be prepared. Also, it's our brand. When they go out the door, they're a Valencia student, and I want the employer to see something that's of great quality. So when we work with employers, it's usually a dance in the beginning. I think they're very intrigued by what we do and how specific the skills can be taught. The focus on soft skills, the focus on helping students in the case management model. But I really sell to employers that what is so great about what we do is we find them, we vet them, we train them, and we create the opportunity for employers to come in. And so if you did decide to do something like this is really the selling point for you, to be able to get employers engaged at a really high level. I know it's challenging sometimes. I know on the degree side, they have lots of advisory board members, but sometimes the person on the board isn't really the person in the organization that can make a change. And so you want to make sure that you provide this opportunity for them to do that. So Christy, if you'll go to the next slide. I think we're almost done. I just very quickly wanted to share some stats about who our target audience is currently. You can see that we're serving a pretty fair, diverse population of people. You can see the number of females to males. We have a lot of non-traditional jobs for females, but we work really hard to make sure that they understand that they have great skills in construction and manufacturing. And a lot of employers do prefer women in some of these positions. Things like to build a circuit card, your fingers have to be really tiny so that you can maneuver the circuit card. We also do serve veterans. Our average age right now is 32 years of age. So that goes back to, these are people that have been working, really maybe have some college, don't have college. And then the thing that we didn't anticipate is about 2 years ago, we started to track the number of degree people coming into our programs. And currently 8% of our population has a 4-year degree. So I just wanted you to know a little bit about our stats and our statistics. So Christy, if you'll go to the next slide. I think I'm almost done here. Just real quickly, again, you're probably experiencing similar things in your community, but in Central Florida, pre-pandemic, hospitality tourism was the #1 employer in Central Florida. Probably no surprise to any of you who have come to Disney World or Universal Studios, followed by healthcare, and you can read the list. And then overnight, the change has been significant. So I would tell you that distribution, logistics, and supply chain is the #1 hiring industry in our community. I just saw yesterday on one of the major interstates, Walmart distribution. They have 2 major centers here in Central Florida. They're hiring people right now, full-time, full benefits at $22 an hour. The needs are so great. Central Florida has 122,000 miles of highway. We have 2 seaports, 9 airports. This is a major distribution hub for the South. And then you can see the other industries. Obviously, COVID has impacted healthcare. Both of our major healthcare providers, I've seen the email myself. It says, send me every resume you have. And they have great needs along with construction and manufacturing. So if you'll go to the next slide. Just kind of current state, the journey that we're on. As I mentioned, we have 16 AST programs right now. We will probably launch 2 more in the next cohort from January to June. We are targeting about 750 students this year. We are probably well over 350 right now. And if this special project at the Convention Center comes on board, we will be over 1,000 students for this year. Our current program completion rate is 95%. And I'm telling you, this is because of the vetting and the recruiting that we do up front. We make sure that we get people in the program and get them set up for success. And our placement rates range in the low 80s, depending on the program. But as I mentioned right now, the need is so high, I think it's going to be much higher than that. And all of our programs articulate to either 1 degree or multiple college degrees at Valencia. So if a student does desire to continue their education and gain their degree, they have that pathway and they don't have to pay for those credits. So Christy, if you'll go to the next slide. So just to recap, I won't read all of this to you, but just I wanted to give you, like, if I had my top 10 things that I would tell you that has helped us be successful, is definitely focusing on those critical essential industries in Central Florida. I'm so glad that we did this from the beginning. It made it post COVID. The transition was very easy for us other than hospitality, and we really didn't have any AST programs in hospitality just because they didn't hit that $15 an hour or higher mark. This was really easy for us. We already had the programming in place. When I say develop meaningful relationships with employers, what I discover mostly is that employers don't really know how to engage with you. I know that sounds simple, but I find that they say, I want to participate, I just don't know how. And so I kind of get them to do things like be a guest speaker, it's kind of low stakes. And then just as they get more comfortable along the way, you can guide them. Definitely creating the pathways and letting students know about that. I think that's really important. The recruiting team is super important. Community partners, we would be nowhere without our community partners because they do help us with a lot of barriers for people that need help. Right now, there are so many grants that could support this work for your college and for your community. I love the cohort model. I would never change that. I think it is just really one of the signature things. The hands-on is very critical. Developing great networks, it's taken us a long time. I mean, I've spent years courting people in our community to make that critical connection. But I'll tell you that right now it's paying off, super great for us. And then grassroots is just the most effective marketing tool. So I know Christy's been managing the questions. Hopefully there are some out there. And if I can answer any questions for you, I'd be happy to.
We do have a number of questions, and you have answered some along the way, but here's one that I don't think that you've addressed yet. So 4 weeks, 7 a.m. to 3 p.m., that is fast and intensive. How was the curriculum developed? Is it a box curriculum from equipment or organizations and their trainings, or developed individually by the faculty member with review of industry partners?
It's all of those things. So we call our full-time instructors. They're not called faculty. And we will use, if a vendor has resources, a lot of the vendors right now have really rich LMS systems that you can tap into. We also have 2 curriculum designers on our team that will work with the industry partner, also the vendor partner, and pull everything together. We do content maps for every single class so that you can see how, it'll be a couple of nuggets of content, and then they're instantly into some kind of practice, hands-on portion, because again, we try to make sure that every single day the students are up and moving. And for example, our carpentry students build a tiny home. They build it on a trailer so it can move. But what a great experience if you're going to teach carpentry. So we do all of those things, but the curriculum designers that we have on team kind of manage that process for us to make sure that we have the right content going. And then we'll do some post-assessment, like if students aren't passing the certification, we monitor that, and just to make sure that we're being effective.
We have a few questions about funding. So one is, what's the average cost of these programs? And you talked about some of the funding sources. And a related question is, how do students enroll in these programs and still work and provide for their families?
That's a great question. So the programs, in many cases, like for welding, for example, we have a morning shift and an afternoon shift. So because it's Orlando and there's lots of, industry here, a lot of students will work either part-time, and they can work on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, full-time if they need to. So a lot of students will make that transition to go to school, work part-time or full-time if they need to. In some cases, we have what we call earn as you learn models, where for apartment maintenance, for example, the apartment communities will come in week 1 and interview the students. They give them a $15 an hour internship, and they can work on Fridays and Saturdays at the apartment community. And that way they can earn some money coming in while they're in school. And then we also have partners like the city of Orlando. They actually, for approved programs, they give students a $125 a week stipend if they participate in class and they attend class. So there's some metrics that we have to report back to them. But all of those things combined help people to get over that 4-week period or 6-week period or 10-week period and again, if you're attracting unemployed and underemployed people, many of our students come in the door and haven't been working. So that's how we get around that. The average cost for a program, I'm happy to send anybody if you want any brochures or anything. I would tell you that it's anywhere from $5,000 to $7,000 for a program.
So we have a few questions about basic skills and adult education. So do you include basic skills instruction with these programs?
I would say we include some basic skills, but if a student comes to us without a GED or high school diploma, we will refer them to a community partner. And many of the programs, they do not have to have a GED or high school diploma, so we won't not accept them. But we know that having a GED and a high school diploma will help them with employment. So we do work with some of our local partners to do that. We also have a youth build program here at Valencia, and all of those students have dropped out of high school. So we work with youth build. They will get them the GED, and then they transfer them into an AST program.
So related to that, how do your recruitment efforts, like your CRM, your data, relate to the credit and adult ed program? So how do you share the information about your students back and forth with the other programs at Valencia?
So Valencia is currently undergoing a Target X implementation. That's, I believe, the Salesforce version for higher education for a CRM system. So I will tell you that come January, it will be a lot easier to share that information because it will all be in one system. Currently, it's not in different systems. So we work with a lot of the career program advisors. So they will reach out to our team and say, hey, I'm working with Ben. Can you tell me something about Ben? And so we can work with them individually. But I would tell you to remember that the student that we're going after and serving, I would tell you that less than 5% of them right now are moving on to a college degree. Again, with 8% of them already having a baccalaureate degree or 11% a 2-year degree, it's not a significant number of people that are taking advantage of the pathway today, but I think that that's due to change in certain programs like IT. I think the IT students would be a great candidate for getting into our degree programs.
Another question, are resume writing and interviewing different classes, or are they embedded into a course? And the same question for financial literacy. So are those separate instruction that the students take, or are they embedded in some of their skills training?
So they're embedded into the program, but they are separate courses. So our resume writing course is 2 hours, our interview course is 2 hours, and the financial literacy class is anywhere from an hour to an hour and a half. And so people come in. We actually have our local credit union that does all the financial literacy training for us. They don't charge us. By the way, banks have to do this to be compliant. And they also give all of our students a free checking account for 4 years. So we work very closely with Edition Financial here, and they come in and do that, and they'll just do it as part of the regular program.
And we have time for just another question or two. We've had a couple questions here. I know that you've addressed this articulation to the credit side, but can you talk a little bit more about maybe some of the mechanics, how you've worked out that articulation so the students don't have to repeat the courses?
Yes. So we have a team here at the college that supports us with this, and they're in the AS degree program side. And how they're able to do the articulation credits is really matched to the national industry credentials that the students earn. So they're able to look at state frameworks and cross-reference the content that's in the certification with the content that's taught in the class. A good example is our Welding 1 and 2 programs. So those are two 18-week programs. Welding 1 is 18 weeks, Welding 2 is 18 weeks. A student can get 24 articulated credits towards an Associate of Science degree in what's called Supervision and Management for Industry. And it's a very degree that can take a lot of technical experience and move that into college credits. And the great thing here at Valencia is we don't make the students pay for those credits. So once they enroll in the degree program, they're awarded those credits based on the industry articulation or certifications that they've earned.
And one final question for folks who are thinking about starting something similar. Who at the college reaches out to the industry partner? Is that on a high level, like the CEO or member of the cabinet, or is that on the trainer recruiter level?
It's probably at my level and the director level of each of the programs. So I have like a director of advanced manufacturing, a director of, I actually have a director of recruiting and job placement. So we all work together on the employer partners because it really takes a village to find and connect with each of these people. You'll also find too that certain people on your team, employers will gravitate towards them. I don't look like a construction person, so I always take my construction program manager with me, and he can get a lot further than I can, but we all work together on that. I think, you know, that's the beauty of teamwork.
Well, thank you, Dr. McMorran, for your presentation and for answering questions. I think that our audience has found this to be very informative, and I will provide the slides and the recording of the presentation later this afternoon and share your email address for anyone else who would like to get in touch with you. So thank you to all of our participants for being here this afternoon. We do have a great week ahead with some thought-provoking and engaging discussion boards, as well as some spotlight sessions from Alamo Colleges, Amarillo College, and our partners at JFF. So we look forward to seeing you engage online, and we'll see you again live next Monday. Have a great week.